Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Kurt Ranowski, publisher of Yankee News, coming to you from the world-famous Parkway Diner in Stamford, Connecticut, on this Monday, the 20th of May, the year of our Lord 2024. And as usual, calls to action. Go to our website, yankeet.news. Like, subscribe, donate, buy our stuff. Tell everybody to check it out. And of course, we're always promoting Sally Fink's site, the Continental Tribune, THECTLTRIBUNE.com. Like, subscribe, donate, and tell the universe. And tonight's the night. I just want to let you know, as we speak right now, the conventions, such as they are underway for the congressional seats, and we're still pitching for Bob McGuffey for Congress, and it's not too late to donate to his campaign. Now, I'll just say you that the odds makers are favoring Bob to win the nomination, but you know, these other characters, who we like, by the way, are going to be making it difficult. And also a call to action for the January 6th prisoners as we continue to follow them. Jack Lang has been putting together I guess you could call it a food program. So you can see the link there, screenshot, take a note of it, and definitely do your part to help them out. Okay, for the quickies, this is a good one. So to anybody who's a fan of cryptocurrency, we like to believe that, ooh, blockchains, what a wonderful idea. They cannot be hacked. If the truth be known, there is a way to do it, but the probability of being able to do it is very, very low. That is, unless you go to MIT. So now we have a new problem. That would be two brothers who are MIT students, and they hacked Ethereum and made off with $25 million. And they like to boast about how they did it in 12 seconds. Well, there was a lot of run-up to that magic moment. But okay, the first message is that Ethereum is not immune to attack. It's not as perfect as we think it is, all right? That's the first problem. The second problem is that the Department of Justice had no trouble finding them, which should raise questions. There's supposed to be some element of anonymity associated with the blockchain. So check out the story. It explains a few things, but not many, and I think we'll need to do a deeper dive on it. All right, moving quickly on to the next one, the Stamford, Connecticut Board of Education. You know, so we here are avid fans of Becky Hammond, who's on that board, and she's the lone conservative standing against the hordes. And she made a point of the fact that we have at least two things happening in this new budget cycle. The first is we are going to start everything anew. Much to our surprise, with the end of the old budget cycle, all the teachers have to reapply for their old jobs. That is obscene. Then on top of that, let's see, what was the other thing that they did? They took $3 million off of the budget, which was not much of anything. But then there's a case where there's going to be openings for teaching positions, and they're going to be filled by administrators, which is of questionable value. So check out what she had to say. The next thing is, this is a look back. I had read this article before, and I don't know. So there's this gentleman. Let me see if I can pull up his name quickly. Andrew Evans. I think that's a pen name. So he was hired by Teach for America. And he was another one of these young college students who was very idealistic and wanted to make life better in the terrible inner cities. Well, that was until he ran into reality. So on the one hand, this article is a very coarse, raw, honest portrayal of what goes on in the school system in Baltimore. But if we're being honest still, it's also a portrayal of how, I'm going to put it in the bluntest terms possible, a white boy who has lousy interpersonal skills has no business being in a black district where they take complete advantage of them, and that's exactly what happened. So, as it says, he offers no explanations and he offers no solutions. So it's just a depiction of what he went through as a failure in this system. And I think it's very instructive. People should definitely go read it. Meantime, all right, so Greenwich is not the only one here. They're a big offender. But now we have, oh, you know what? Hold on a second. I just want to make a point here. This stuff, I don't know if you've heard about this, but you have the, what we'll call the DEI pledge. Yale University hasn't imposed it on people who work there. Harvard had it, then they withdrew it, and then some other schools are doing it, where if you want to be a part of the system, you have to take the DEI pledge, that you too will be concerned about equity and diversity and inclusiveness, and you too will do your best. Okay, all fine and well, but you know what? As we have explained, and have many others, this is a form of communism. It may not look like the communism you know about when you read in the history books, but it still has some very strong roots. And I just wanted to tell you a story. Once I was wandering around in the library at the University of Toronto, and just out of curiosity, I said, hey, look at this cool journal here. It's the Romanian Journal of Mathematics. Hey, I got to have a look at this. So I open it up, and I look at the first paper in there. And before you could read anything about the research, you had a big fat paragraph where the author had to sing the praises of communism in Romania. And once he had passed that test, then he could go on and do the rest. Boy, does that sound similar to the DEI pledge. Well, guess what? It's coming to Greenwich, Connecticut. I also know that the Guilford school system has been implementing this for a while too. So basically, you have a system for evaluating teachers, and now added to that evaluation will be sections that are basically asking the question, how good a job is this teacher doing with respect to teaching equity and social justice? This is so messed up, I don't even know where to begin. But again, go check it out. Meantime, let's see, what was the next cool one here? That one. Okay, this article, the link is up, you gotta check this out. So the way this story is set up, it talks about a group of women who have been responsible for developing the, quote, misinformation system for censoring people online. So I just want to read one part, all right? Just one part that should upset you. So one of these women who did this at a recent government hearing announced, we have powerful tools to regulate with ISP blocking power and can collect basic device information, account information, phone numbers, and email addresses, so our investigators can at least find a place to issue a warning. Boy, I don't know about you, but boy, that sure sounds a lot like communist China to me. So check it out. It's more of a historical piece from a certain perspective. Okay, meantime, so this piece that I found, it has more to do with the fact that Donald Trump held a rally in, of all places, the South Bronx. Now, the first problem is that everybody thinks that New York City is heavily Democrat. Well, then how come you had huge numbers of people coming out, shouting for Trump, waving flags, dancing in the streets, engaging with people? How do you explain that? Anyway, I want to point out that this rally took place in the South Bronx on May 19th. When you go to this link that we have put up, go down a couple pages, you're going to find out that May 19th will be remembered in the history books as a seminal day for which a lot of important things developed. And so, let's see, maybe I'll just rattle off a few to whet your appetite. Okay. Democrat fundraiser from Silicon Valley donates $1 million to Trump. Judge overseeing Trump's January 6th case rules against Jack Smith. We cover that at the end here. Let's see, where's another one? Anyway, there's more of them. You got to go check it out. Okay, so now the fun part. All right, I have to mention it just because it was in the news. What I found amazing was last night it was announced that you had this helicopter in Iran that went down, and they were having trouble finding the helicopter with the Iranian president and the foreign minister in it. Eventually they found it, and they found that they were dead. There was the longest time just this doubt and question in the air. But the big thing is there's been very quick accusations that some form of sabotage probably took place. So, and guess what? Who are the first people you think of when it's Iran? That's right, the Mossad. Yep, that's right. And if it's not Mossad, then yep, it's got to be those second stringers, the CIA. So there it is. There are consequences to this. We'll see. Meantime, this is a concern. Now, I want to preface this. This fight over DEI, which is far from over, is of far more crucial importance than it would first appear. The place that this discussion really needs to start, okay, is with South Africa, because the DEI model is being imposed upon America, first had its run in South Africa after apartheid was ended. Okay, well, guess who has said, you know what? This whole DEI thing in South Africa is not working out. That would be Harvard. That's right. There was a Harvard study that recently came out, said we've evaluated the impact, and this idea that you don't hire on the basis of merit, that you don't hire on the basis of qualifications, creates a system that is far worse than anything you could ever expect, all right? It's a case of where failure leads to failure, leads to failure, and then you're watching your whole system eventually fall apart. So there it is, and now Congress is trying to pass a bill called the American Privacy Act of 2024. You need to call your congressman and tell them, no, you have got to take this crap out. So they are actually trying to put in what they call a pre-cooked section of the bill, which will make it a law to have mandatory hiring on basis of racial quotas in both public and private sectors. Crazy, but there it is. Okay, now, Eric and I had this little discussion last week, and I believe that we have the answer to the problem. Nonetheless, when you go to the website and you see the link to the story, you'll see where we're going here. But tonight, for the courtesy of our overlords at YouTube, I have to kind of get creative. So tonight we're going to talk about smicky mop contamination in the PFIZER COVID. No, that word doesn't. The PFIZER blups. The PFIZER blups. Now the PFIZER blups, it turns out, have 500 times the permissible level. And so what we have here is that smicky mop impurities in the PFIZER Corporation blops could be as high as 500 times the permissible limit, according to a new study. This is two German researchers, a journal called Methods and Protocols. And by the way, on scientific journals, we have some bad news. We'll get to that. So they did the quantitative XYZ technique and found that there was between 360, 534 times the permissible limit of blups, blup components. So that's pretty bad. Anyway, to read the rest of it, go to the link. Okay, so the next story, this is the segue. I'm going to preface this, ladies and gentlemen, by just briefly mentioning that I'm a biology guy, that's my background, that periodically you have this argument, this fight that goes on in the biomedical press over what will be called irreproducibility of research. And it's a bigger problem than you think. In the latest go-around, about 10 years ago, it was found that fully 54% of biomedical research could not be replicated by other laboratories, okay? That's a big number. All right, so that's just reproducibility. We have a bigger problem. Now, that this has come out at this point in time in mid-2024 should raise some questions, but I have my own opinion on this subject. So to get to the point, it was announced that Wiley, a major scientific publisher, is going to be shutting down 19 of its journals. Well over, it says more than 11,300 papers will have to be retracted. And that's because there are questions about the peer review process. Somebody got sloppy, somebody got careless. And so here you have these papers that can't be trusted. You know, you've heard Fauci say, trust the science. Well, I'm sorry, if you have published in a journal, okay, and you've had to retract those papers, you can't trust those papers. So what are you talking about? Trust the science, get real. Okay, so this, even though this is a small percentage of the total number of papers that are usually published, this is still a substantial number, and it just shows that a lot of people are not doing their job with respect to scientific integrity and research. So there you go. Okay, now I just briefly mentioned this. All right, we have two whistleblowers concerning Hunter Biden and some of his naughty behaviors. So there's a trial coming up, and guess what? There are two IRS whistleblowers who had something to say about Hunter Biden, but the IRS was quick to try and shove them aside. Their names are Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler. Well, thank God for Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler. They are not the types to take things lying down. So they're filing a suit in order to intervene in Hunter Biden's case. There are more details here, just wanted to share that with you. And, oh my God, you know, there's some kinds of news in which you have every right to be disgusted, okay? And this is one of them. New England daycare workers spike children's lunch with melatonin to knock them out. What are you doing giving drugs to kids? And they didn't even understand these people. Sally Dreckham, 52, Tracy Inney, 51, Caitlin Filardo, 23, and Jessica Foster, 23. May you all be appropriately punished and then some. We're doing this because, well, those kids are just a little too hard to deal with. Well, isn't that the way kids are? So that was their answer.
Is it alleged or was it proven?
No, they did it. They did it. The problem is children react differently to melatonin than adults do. So luckily there were no really bad effects that were immediately observed. But no, you don't do this stuff. This is crazy. Now, I just need to remind you, our friend, Richard Blumenthal, the senator from Connecticut, the senior loser from Connecticut. Remember, he was caught at the Amistad Award ceremonies a few years ago, and he pretended that he didn't know he was in the middle of a communist meeting. Oh, well, gee whiz. Sorry, we don't buy it. So now he wants to complain because, well, the justices in the Supreme Court have a lack of decency. Oh, a lack of decency. Really? I don't know, Senator Blumenthal. What do you think about drug cartels and illegals coming across the border and crime and rape and child trafficking? Is that decent? You're such a joke. Now, this is an interesting story. Excuse me. Leave it to Alex Jones to stir the pot, right? So, did this piece arguing that these Doppler radars that we are using can actually alter the weather. Now, it's interesting. So I picked this off of Free Republic, excuse me. And in the comments section, there's a lot of back and forth. People say, yeah, maybe no, he doesn't know what he's talking about, causing trouble, this is crazy. I will just preface this with one other comment. Going back to Woodrow Wilson, you actually had the NOAA back then, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. And they put out a federal ruling back, I think in the 1915, around there or whatever, basically stating that anybody who is involved in any form of weather modification must report it to the federal government. Back then, the federal government was concerned about federal weather modification. And by the way, who was exempt from those reporting requirements? That's right, the federal government. In any event, I have up there a link to a YouTube video of all things where the presenter goes through the different aspects. He gives more of a historical perspective, and it gets kind of technical. I'm going to have to go back and study it. But let's just say that the jury is still out on whether Dopplers can affect weather. So last one, okay, who knew? If anybody has thought of as having it in for Trump, it's Judge Chutkan in Washington, D.C. But in this case, she has ruled against Jack Smith concerning certain motions filed by the defense. And I'll just read it briefly. The court agrees diligent defense counsel will need to conduct a preliminary review of each substantive motion the government files in order to know whether they need to take further action. While that's not a major burden, it is a cognizable one. So it is actually kind of shocking. She could be handing a lot of victories to Jack Smith, but in this case, she's not. Anyway, that's it for now, and see you guys next week.